We are not rare. But before you leave, you will perceive the lore will be unlocked. You might be stalked by a Sasquatch or a ghost witch, possibly even a ghost that will boast about knowing the Ohio Grassman or even the Michigan Dogman. Werewolves hunt, poltergeists are up front, but in these backwoods folklore is unlocked.
Welcome back to Folklore Unlocked. I'm Austin, and like always, I'm joined by Ethan.
Yep, hello again, everyone.
And this week, we are taking a look at the X-Man of New Orleans. And a little background is that it's this serial killer somewhat similar to Jack the Ripper and being unidentified and in a relatively short span of time, and about a year and a half between May 1918 and October 1919 in New Orleans, Louisiana.
So, the attacks, they used axes that oftentimes belonged to the victims, and a panel in the back door was removed by a chisel, both of which were left on the floor by the door. The victims were usually Italian immigrants or Italian Americans, and most were female victims, with male victims only if they interfered.
And the first two victims were Joseph and Catherine Maggio, and this happened on May 23rd, 1918. And Joseph was a grocer, which, being a grocer, owner of a grocery store, will pop up multiple times later on. And they were attacked in their apartment while they were sleeping, which also will pop up multiple times. And they were initially attacked with a straight razor, and Catherine's throat was cut so deeply she was nearly decapitated, and both were attacked with an axe as well. Joseph initially survived the attack, but died after being found by his brothers, Jake and Andrew.
Yeah, just from this attack here, it almost seems like it's not about killing, it's more about just like almost savoring it, since Catherine's throat was like very, very deeply cut.
Yeah, if you cut, that takes a lot of force to decapitate somebody. So to, cut somebody's throat that you almost decapitate them is a very, very brutal thing to do.
Yeah. Then we have Louis Besummer and Harriet Lowe. They were attacked during the early morning hours of June 27th of 1918. Besummer was hit with a hatchet on his right temple, resulting in a possible skull fracture, and Lowe was hit over her left ear and one side of her face, paralyzed. Both were discovered alive by a bakery wagon driver, John Zenka, and the axe used in the attack was in an adjacent bathroom. Kind of like we said, he usually leaves his stuff afterwards. And Lowe died in August following a failed surgery.
So yeah, that's also kind of a thing. Some of the victims initially survived, but later died from injuries days, or in this case months, later. And then the next victim was Anna Schneider, and she was attacked during the early morning hours of August 5th, 1918. And she was 8 months pregnant, her scalp was cut open, and when she was discovered by her husband, Ed Schneider, her face was apparently covered in blood, which, fair enough, her head was cut open. And she gave birth to a healthy baby girl 2 days later, and she claimed to remember nothing from the attack.
Then we have Joseph Romano on August 10th of 1918, and sisters Pauline, Mary Bruno awoke to the sound of a commotion coming from their uncle's room and discovered that Joseph had taken a serious blow to the head and died 2 days later from head trauma despite walking to the ambulance.
And also, something that I forgot to put in, that in a lot of these cases, they did see a large man leaving the scene of most of these attacks. So, like, Anna Schneider remembers seeing a man stand over her. Somebody saw an alleged attacker leaving the Bruno Romano attacks. And I think Zonko also saw someone leaving the Bessemer and Lowe attacks. And the next victims were the Corramiglia family. And this happened on the night of March 10th, 1919. And sorry if I butchered that last name. It's, I believe, Italian, as most of the victims, like we said, were Italian immigrants or Italian Americans. And the three victims were Charles, Rosie, and infant Mary. And Charles and Rosie suffered skull fractures, and Mary was killed in her mother's arms.
Then we have Steve Boca, which in August 19 of 1919, he was also a grocer that was attacked while sleeping. And he did end up recovering from his injuries, but could not remember the attack.
And the second to last victim was Sarah Lawman. And this happened on the night of September 3rd, 1919. And she suffered a severe head injury and was missing several teeth when neighbors found her, and she also recovered from her injuries, but she could not remember any details aside from seeing a man.
Then we have Mike Peptone, and on October 27th of 1919 was the last of the alleged attacks and did not survive the attack.
And his wife did allege to see a man fleeing the scene. And then there's a letter similar to the Jack the Ripper case that we've got here if you're watching on YouTube, where you can pause and read it if you want. But the gist of it says that the X-Men would not attack places playing jazz music. So basically the entire city of New Orleans was playing jazz music that night, and no one was attacked that specific night.
I think that's very odd. And then also in the note here, if you can read, it says at exactly 12:15 o'clock, and it says earthly time. Which sat here, it's like, how off do you have to be to be like, oh, it's earthly time, not like whatever time. So it's just kind of weird.
Remember, Jack the Ripper allegedly sent the from hell letter, so
And I mean,
serial
go ahead.
serial attackers slash killers are kind of strange people to begin with.
Yeah, I mean, also in the note it says I have a close relationship with the angel of death. So I mean, that's another kind of eh. So we have some motives and theories. So no robbery motives, as there was nothing taken from anyone. There is possibly an ethnicity based attacks because they mostly went for Italian Americans or Italian immigrants. There's possibly a sexual motive to it since they did usually go for women. And it's less likely that it was to promote jazz music like he kind of talked about for like in the note.
Yeah, but that seems awful weak considering the other two more realistic motives. And I think like Jack the Ripper like the Jack the Ripper case, I think this case won't be definitively resolved due to lack of evidence and lack of like DNA testing and knowledge at the time. So there's that, and there were many people that were falsely accused of being the X-Man. So I think, like Jack the Ripper, I think sadly that there won't be a definitive answer due to lack of evidence.
Yeah, I agree. Most likely we'll never know who the Axeman actually was. But I do find it kind of surprising that there was a good chunk of people that could not remember anything or possibly not like in great detail who the attacker was. But uh, since most of the attacks resulted in some damage to the skull, then that could possibly be the cause. Because if you're hit in the head, it'd be kind of hard to remember some things that happened during the attack.
Yeah, head injuries aren't anything to play around with.
Yeah, kind of like that one guy that walked to the ambulance but then died like a couple days later.
Yeah, that either that guy was very strong-willed and just stubborn, or just the injuries didn't take full effect until afterwards.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that's all we've got for this week. Any last words, Ethan?
Just thanks for watching, everyone.
Join us next week as we take a look at the Hinterkaifeck murders from Germany. Thanks for watching. If you're on YouTube, leave us a like, comment, and subscribe. And if you're on Spotify, leave us a comment and follow. And we'll see you next week.
You might wake up beside Spearfinger with an extended visit from Jack the Ripper. But if you're lucky, it'll be an angel on that range hill of Louisiana. You might meet Mary Laveau or the Road. At Folklore Unlocked, Austin and Ethan concoct their theory of the eerie and unexplained around the world, sometimes even the underworld. The lore is locked behind secrets, but folklore is meant to be unlocked. The Sokaloo is haunting NC as well as Tennessee. There are many giants that might be clients of the Dark Watchers, who might have psychokinesis. And the phantom time hypothesis is like a phoenix coming back around again and again. The laser strain on your brain if you've got more than 2 brain cells in you. Some believe McCartney's dead because they read into the Mandela effect, which is subject to folklore.